Did you know that Roman soldiers didn't just rely on their swords and armor to ensure victory? They believed that the fate of battles was directly linked to the gods and supernatural forces. In fact, superstitions, omens, and religious rituals were just as important as physical strength or strategy on the battlefield. Imagine the pressure a Roman soldier must have felt, facing war with the belief that everything that happened, from the flight of a bird to the behavior of an animal, could influence his fate. Every little sign was interpreted as a warning from the gods, and a simple mistake could mean defeat. But how do you deal with this fear? How do you face the pain and suffering of war knowing that anything you do wrong could attract divine wrath? The answer lay in the ceremonies, prayers, amulets, and even the feasts that the Romans held after each victory. It was a way of ensuring that the spiritual forces were on your side, warding off bad luck and consecrating each achievement as a blessing from the gods. They built temples, offered sacrifices, and even held grand parades to celebrate victories and ask for protection in future battles. In this video, we'll explore in detail how Roman soldiers incorporated the supernatural into their daily lives, how their beliefs shaped their actions on the battlefield. We'll also understand how religion and superstition not only helped to dispel fear, but also brought a sense of unity, identity, and strength. If you've ever wondered how faith could impact the greatest empires in history, this video is for you. Get ready for a journey into the heart of the Roman Empire, where war and spirituality intertwine in fascinating ways. Before we start exploring the next topic, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because what follows is a series of incredible videos that will help you better understand the history of Rome and how it can inspire your personal journey. Imagine that you are a young Roman soldier, wearing your shining armor, holding your shield and sword, ready to march with your legion. But before you set out, there is something very important that needs to be done: find out if the gods are on your side. For the Romans, battle was not only a matter of strategy and strength, but also of luck and destiny. And the gods always gave signs about what was to come. That is why, before any confrontation, soldiers and their commanders looked for omens, divine messages hidden in the details of the world around them. The person responsible for interpreting these signs was the augur, a highly respected priest. He observed the behavior of birds in the sky, analyzed the entrails of sacrificed animals, and even listened for unusual sounds to tell whether the gods were favorable or whether war should be avoided. If birds flew the wrong way, or if an animal had some anomaly in its body, this was seen as a serious warning. In these cases, the battle could be postponed, and special ceremonies were even held to try to change the will of the gods. The Romans believed that facing the enemy without divine blessing was a fatal mistake, as it meant that they were fighting against their own destiny. But signs of destiny were not limited to sacred rituals. In the daily life of the army, small events could be seen as messages from the gods. If a soldier stumbled when leaving the camp, everyone was on alert. It was a bad sign, a warning that something bad could happen. Sometimes, the departure was even cancelled, and a new time for the march was chosen. Another feared omen was encountering certain animals on the path. If a snake slithered in front of the soldiers or a crow landed nearby, many saw this as a dark sign. After all, crows were birds associated with death, and snakes could symbolize betrayal or hidden danger. Some soldiers even said prayers or threw coins on the ground to try to neutralize the bad omen. Furthermore, there was a curious detail: if a soldier realized that his left foot was bare by accident, this could be a sign of bad luck. In an army where every detail mattered, this small occurrence could generate distrust and even lead to more rituals to ward off bad luck. After all, in Roman culture, the left side was often associated with misfortune. But soldiers didn't just wait for bad signs. They also carried special protections with them to ensure that nothing bad would happen. Many wore amulets, small objects that they believed had magical powers to ward off evil. One of the most famous amulets was the fascinium, a phallus-shaped pendant that was used to ward off the evil eye and envy. These amulets were common among legionaries, and some carried more than one to reinforce their protection. The belief was so strong that, even in the midst of bloody battles, soldiers felt more confident just by having a fascinium attached to their armor or hidden in their clothes. For them, any advantage, even mystical, was welcome. But the amulets were not limited to the fascinium. Many soldiers also carried small statues of their favorite gods. Mars, the god of war, was the most popular, as he represented courage and strength. Having an image of Mars meant that the god would be at the soldier's side, guiding his sword and protecting him from enemy blows. Another god greatly worshipped by legionaries was Jupiter, the most powerful of all. As king of the gods, Jupiter symbolizes victory and justice, and many believed that his blessing could transform even the most difficult battles into triumphs. For this reason, it was not uncommon to see soldiers saying small prayers before entering combat, asking for the protection of the great Jupiter. Soldiers also performed small rituals before battle. Some kissed their amulets, others touched the ground 3 times before raising their swords, and there were those who spoke secret phrases to attract good luck. These gestures may seem simple, but for a Roman soldier, they were essential to facing war with confidence. In addition to individual beliefs, Roman armies as a whole performed sacred ceremonies. Altars were set up in camps, where animal sacrifices and offerings were made to ensure that the gods were pleased. In these rituals, priests asked Mars to give strength to the soldiers and Jupiter to guarantee victory. Even during war, the legions followed their religious practices rigorously. During moments of rest, some soldiers preferred to step aside to pray, while others lit small torches as an offering to the gods. This unwavering faith helped to maintain high morale and made the soldiers feel protected. With so many beliefs and rituals, it is clear that Roman soldiers did not rely solely on their swords and armor. For them, the world was guided by invisible forces, and the only way to ensure victory was to respect the signs of the gods. After all, in times of war, any help, divine or otherwise, was indispensable. The beliefs of Roman soldiers went far beyond the battlefield. From the moment a young man enlisted in the army, he began to learn about the rituals and traditions. It was not only a question of faith, but also of belonging. Each soldier needed to understand that his life was connected to greater forces and that ignoring divine signs could have disastrous consequences. For the legionaries, everything in the world had a special meaning. A sunrise on a cloudy day could indicate difficult times. An unexpected storm on the eve of a march was a warning to be extra vigilant. Even words spoken by chance could be interpreted as hidden messages from the gods. For this reason, many soldiers avoided talking about death or defeat before battle, as they believed that words had power and could bring misfortune. Another interesting aspect of the soldiers' beliefs was their absolute respect for priests and soothsayers. Although they were warriors trained to fight without hesitation, many of them would not make an important decision without first consulting an omen. Even experienced generals, who commanded entire legions, followed the advice of the priests, as they knew that defying the gods could result in a humiliating defeat. In addition to omens, the legionaries also believed in curses. If a battle was lost disastrously, some soldiers might suspect that an enemy had cast a spell on them. There were stories of soldiers who buried small lead tablets with inscriptions asking the gods for revenge against those who had wronged them. These rituals were common even among the most skeptical, because in times of war, any mystical advantage was taken seriously. But the superstitions of the Romans were not only linked to omens and curses. They also had their good luck rituals. Some soldiers always stepped out of camp with their right foot first. Others carried personal objects of loved ones, believing that this would protect them in combat. There were even those who repeated secret phrases before going to sleep, as a way of ensuring that they would wake up alive the next day. Interestingly, even the way a soldier put on his armor could follow a superstitious ritual. Many believed that putting on their helmet last brought bad luck, so they followed a specific order to equip themselves before a battle. Others had their own rules, such as always adjusting their shield 3 times before marching or touching their sword before advancing on the enemy. Small habits like these help to alleviate fear and keep morale high. The soldiers' relationship with the gods was also reinforced by religious festivities. Even in the midst of wars, the legions would pause to celebrate important dates, such as the festivals dedicated to Mars and Jupiter. On these occasions, the soldiers would offer food, wine, and even miniature weapons as symbols of devotion. Some also made personal promises, swearing to build an altar or make a greater sacrifice if they returned alive from a difficult battle. And when a battle was won, gratitude to the gods became a spectacle. Generals often ordered special sacrifices, such as the offering of a white bull to Jupiter. The soldiers participated in the celebrations with songs, dances, and banquets. The feeling of victory was not only military, but also spiritual. They believed that they had triumphed only because the gods were on their side. The Romans also had a curious practice to ensure that the luck of victory remained with them: the consecration of weapons. After a great battle, some swords and spears were offered to the temples of the gods. This symbolized that the strength used in war belonged not only to men, but also to the deities who protected them. Many of these weapons were hung on altars as sacred reminders of the army's triumphs. But it wasn't just objects that received this consecration. Soldiers themselves, upon returning from long campaigns, sometimes underwent purification rituals. Ritual baths in sacred springs or walking under symbolic arches helped rid them of the negative energies of war. This practice was essential for those returning home, as they believed that the violence of battle could bring bad luck to their families if it was not properly washed away by the ritual. In times of peace, legionaries maintained their devotion even away from the battlefield. Many carried small portable altars, where they said daily prayers. Others visited temples whenever they had the opportunity, asking for protection for future campaigns. This strong connection with the divine helped to keep the spirit of the army united, even when they were not at war. The faith of Roman soldiers was so deep that even their enemies noticed it. On some occasions, barbarian tribes tried to break the spirit of the legionaries by capturing and destroying their religious symbols. However, this often had the opposite effect, as the Romans saw this act as a direct affront to the gods and fought even more furiously to exact revenge. As the centuries passed, many of these beliefs continued to influence the Roman army, even as new religions began to emerge. In the late Empire, with the expansion of Christianity, some ancient practices were adapted, but the idea that divine protection was essential for soldiers remained strong. After all, Roman legionaries were not only disciplined warriors and skilled strategists. They were also men who believed that without the help of the gods, no sword could guarantee victory. Their superstitions and rituals were not just empty traditions, but rather a reflection of their worldview, where war and faith went hand in hand, guiding every step of their journey. So, did you know how the Roman army became one of the greatest military powers in history? Have you ever stopped to think about how the relentless superstitions of Roman soldiers, full of physical and mental challenges, influenced their battles and victories? And how religion was always present, shaping each conquest? Tell us in the comments if you already knew the strength of these beliefs, which were fundamental for Rome to dominate the world. And if this topic has made you curious, share your opinion here. We would love to hear what you think and continue this incredible conversation with you. Roman soldiers did not rely solely on their swords and shields to win battles. Faith in the gods was a fundamental pillar of military life. Mars, the god of war, was considered the greatest protector of legionaries. It was believed that he granted strength and courage to those who demonstrated devotion. Jupiter, the supreme god, was invoked to bring protection, and Mercury, associated with cunning and agility, was remembered in moments that required strategy and quick thinking. The relationship of soldiers with the gods was not only a custom, but a necessity to ensure survival on the battlefield. Within the camps, devotion manifested itself in various ways. Altars were erected in strategic locations, where priests performed rituals to invoke divine protection. Animal sacrifices were common, especially before major battles, as it was believed that spilled blood pleased the gods and made them more likely to grant victory. Small portable temples were also carried by legionaries, allowing rituals to take place even during long military campaigns. Army commanders played a crucial role in the soldiers' relationship with the gods. Solemn promises, known as vota, were made before battles. If victorious, the Romans fulfilled their part by building temples, holding festivals, or offering riches to the gods. Breaking a vow was considered a great mistake, as it could bring misfortune to the entire legion. Faith was not just an individual one, but a collective force that maintained order and high morale among the soldiers. The emperor was also seen as a sacred figure within the army. Legionaries swore allegiance not only to Rome, but to the emperor himself, who was often considered a semi-divine entity. During ceremonies, soldiers paid homage and made sacrifices in the name of the supreme leader. This bond strengthened the army, creating a spiritual connection between the fighters and the highest authority in the empire. Amulets played a fundamental role in the lives of soldiers. Many carried with them small statuettes of Mars, Jupiter, or even minor gods that represented protection and luck. One of the most popular amulets was the fascinium, a phallus-shaped pendant that supposedly warded off the evil eye and envy. Others used enchanted stones or pieces of metal with sacred inscriptions, believing that these objects had the power to ward off death. During long marches, soldiers maintained their connection with the gods through chants and prayers. Each step taken towards the battlefield was accompanied by invocations asking for protection. For them, the divine presence was essential, since at any moment they could be surprised by enemy ambushes. Observing divine signs was taken extremely seriously. Before any confrontation, specialized priests analyzed the behavior of animals, the position of the stars, and other natural phenomena to interpret the will of the gods. If a negative omen was identified, the battle could be postponed or new rituals would be performed to try to reverse the situation. The generals respected these practices, as they knew that ignoring a divine warning could mean the ruin of the entire troop. Minor superstitions were also part of the soldiers' daily lives. Many developed their own rituals, such as always wearing their armor the same way, touching their sword 3 times before a fight, or reciting specific phrases before going to sleep. These small actions brought a sense of security and helped maintain focus amid the chaos of war. If something deviated from the routine, some could interpret it as a bad sign and become restless until a new ritual was performed to rebalance their energies. The soldiers believed that the gods were not restricted to temples and altars, but accompanied them at every moment. In foreign lands, they built improvised shrines and performed ceremonies to maintain their spiritual bond. Even in the most distant regions of the empire, the worship of the deities was maintained, ensuring that divine protection remained present, regardless of location. With contact with other cultures, the legionaries began to incorporate new deities into their beliefs. Egyptian, Celtic, and Persian gods began to be revered alongside the traditional Roman deities. This religious syncretism further strengthened the soldiers' faith, as they now believed that they were receiving protection from different spiritual forces, increasing their chances of success. The soldiers' religiosity was not only a matter of belief, but also of discipline. Daily ceremonies served to reinforce the spirit of unity within the legions. When everyone participated in the rituals, they felt part of something greater, as if the gods themselves were marching alongside them. This sense of belonging strengthened morale and made the Roman army a virtually unbeatable force. In the most difficult times, when death seemed inevitable, soldiers sought comfort in their beliefs. The battlefield was a place of extreme brutality, and the idea that the gods were watching and guiding their destinies brought psychological relief. Many believed that if they died fighting with honor, they would be welcomed by the gods and given a special place in the afterlife. Post-battle rituals were also loaded with meaning. At the end of a battle, thanksgiving ceremonies were held to celebrate victory and honor fallen comrades. Soldiers gathered around altars and offered gifts to the gods, ranging from small personal objects to parts of the loot obtained in war. This moment was seen as a renewal of the alliance between men and the deities. Even after leaving the army, many soldiers continued to practice the same rituals. The faith acquired during years of military service became an essential part of their lives. Those who survived countless battles attributed their longevity to divine protection and continued to perform offerings and ceremonies in gratitude. For them, the gods had been their war companions and deserved to be revered until the end of their lives. The relationship between Roman soldiers and the gods was one of the pillars that supported the empire. It was not only the strength of their weapons that kept Rome at the top, but also the conviction that superior forces were on the side of their warriors. The belief in divine protection gave legionaries the courage to face any challenge, making them one of the most feared and respected military forces in history. Before we move on to the next topic, I noticed that you still haven't liked this video. This is super important because it helps YouTube to share our content with more people, and so we can continue to bring you more information to help you. So, don't waste time, leave your like here, it's free and makes all the difference. Thanks. When Roman soldiers won a battle, it wasn't just a simple celebration, but a huge event full of rituals and traditions. They believed that victory only happened because the gods were on their side, so the first step was always to give thanks. Sacrifices were offered at military altars, often with animals such as bulls and rams, to show gratitude to the deities that protected the troops on the battlefield. Inside the camp, the energy was contagious. Soldiers would clash their swords against their shields, shout the names of their generals, and sing war songs that told the story of their victory. Whoever had fought most bravely would receive a laurel wreath, a symbol of honor. These wreaths were not only for commanders, but also for soldiers who had shown exceptional courage. When a victory was truly great, Rome would prepare for a memorable spectacle, the triumph. This event was reserved for the most successful generals, who were welcomed into the city as true heroes. The general would parade in a golden chariot, surrounded by his soldiers and the spoils of war. The population acclaimed his bravery. It was a moment of glory and recognition, and many dreamed of the chance to experience it. Soldiers were also rewarded for their achievements. Gold, land, and even promotions within the army were distributed as a form of recognition. For many, these rewards meant security for their families or even the chance of a better life after years of serving in the war. This also helped to maintain the loyalty of the troops, as they knew that their achievements would be valued. In addition to material rewards, there were parties and banquets held within the military camps. Wine flowed freely, great roasts were prepared, and soldiers could relax and tell stories of their battles. During these celebrations, games and challenges of strength were often organized. Games included wrestling matches and competitions of skill with weapons. On the battlefield, one of the most symbolic gestures was the construction of trophies. Trophies were made from the weapons and armor captured from defeated enemies. These monuments were not only a sign of victory, but also served as a warning to anyone who would try to challenge the power of Rome. They were displayed so that travelers and future enemies could see the fate of those who dared to face the legions. Another important custom was to erect altars at the battle sites. These altars were dedicated to the gods who had helped in the victory and served as a place for further offerings and prayers. Some of these structures have survived to this day. In some situations, soldiers would undergo purification rituals before returning to normal life. Since they believed that war involved the presence of negative spirits and influences, they would perform ritual baths. Soldiers might also march under a symbolic arch to ward off any bad luck they might have acquired in combat. Legions returning to Rome after long campaigns were often greeted with parades and applause. It was an emotional moment, especially for those who had not seen them for a long time. The streets would fill with people throwing flowers and cheering for the soldiers who had ensured the safety of the empire. Some generals, wanting to immortalize their victory, had temples or statues built to mark their conquests. These works were not only a symbol of power, but also a way of ensuring their stories would be remembered. Many of the monuments erected at that time can still be found in ruins across Europe. Coins were also used as a way of celebrating victories. Emperors often minted new coins with images of battles won, patron gods, or scenes of triumph. These coins circulated throughout the empire, reinforcing the greatness of Roman conquests. Poets and historians also played an important role in these celebrations. Many wrote about the battles, extolling the deeds of generals and soldiers. These stories were read in public squares or shared at festivals, ensuring that the glory of the legions would never be forgotten. In addition to the celebrations and rituals, soldiers also took advantage of victory to thank their leaders. It was common for them to erect statues or inscribe their names on stone tablets to show respect and loyalty to the generals who led them to victory. The impact of these celebrations reached far beyond the army. The Roman population saw each triumph as proof of the power of their civilization and the superiority of their warriors. The feeling of national pride grew, strengthening confidence in the empire and the strength of their legions. The way the Romans celebrated their victory showed how much war and religion were intertwined in their culture. Each battle won was not only a military achievement, but also proof that Rome was favored by the gods. This thinking kept the empire strong for centuries, inspiring soldiers and citizens to believe that nothing could stop its expansion. And so, now that you have delved into this fascinating universe of Roman soldiers, it is clear how their victories did not depend only on strength or strategy on the battlefield, but also on their deep connection with the supernatural. Faith in the gods, the superstitions that guided each movement, the omens that influenced decisions, and the parties to celebrate victory were essential parts of their identity as warriors and as empires. The Roman legions knew that each victory was a divine gift, and they celebrated with grandeur, performing religious rituals, sacrificing animals, and even building temples or trophies as a symbol of the strength of the gods on their side. The way they dealt with the spiritual, always seeking to maintain the favor of the deities, was a reminder that, for them, the supernatural was always intertwined with their battles. Now, stay tuned. As we have seen, what seemed to be simple superstition or religious ritual was, in fact, a powerful tool to ensure success in military campaigns. And with each victory, the legions not only defeated their enemies, but celebrated, gave thanks, and prepared for the future with a feeling of unity and spiritual strength. If you were as fascinated as I was by this connection between war, religion, and celebration, keep following the channel for more stories that reveal the mysteries of the ancient world. Thank you for watching this far. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue receiving the next content. Until the next video.